I want to start with a story that sort of, kind of tells you where I come from. Teenager, grew up in Hyderabad, then went to Bombay to study, came to Bombay to study, etc. But when I was about 15 or 16, we would take this bus to go, and they were, in those days, I don't know, I feel very old these days, but there was something called eve teasing. There would be like these idiots who are just sitting in the bus, calling you names, and as you're walking by, they like touch your whatever, chunni or stuff like that. And there was this one guy who really irritated the heck out of me. He was like tall, big guy, kind of a little scary looking, but not like the Hindi movie scary looking types, a regular fellow. And he would always be calling somebody names. And I was, of course, the loudmouth in the bus, so I would always be target of him saying something. So one day, there was this girl who was very sweet, kind of a little timid, and he touched her. And he really came on to her, and really that scared her, and it really, really upset me. So I said, I am going to be the hero saving this girl, right? So we get off the bus, we are walking to the college, right behind Reddy College in Narayanaguda, and I just picked a fight with him on the road. And I said, how dare you touch somebody like that? I can't even remember the gist of the conversation. All I remember is 5'2" me and 6'1" this fellow, and I'm standing there and yelling at him, feeling so good about myself, like I am saving this woman types. And then I look back, all the women are gone. Nobody's standing next to me, and I'm the only one standing there fighting with this fellow. Then they were all like, Lakshmi, don't say anything, let's just go to college and stuff. And when I was not listening to them, they all left me and went. So I still felt good. I'm going to go to college. My principal is going to say that how good you are, that you did this and all that stuff. So I went to college, promptly called into the principal's office. And then the principal said, I heard you picked a fight with this guy, that is such a shameful thing for our college. In front of our college, you pick a fight with a guy. You are Dr. Trimal Rao's daughter. You are so-and-so's niece. You are like this person who's like kind of from a respected family in Hyderabad, and how dare you talk like that? And I am just mortified. I'm 16 years old, mortified, and I come home. And of course, even in India, even in those days, internet and wireless are new now, but we knew how information could travel very well. By the time I went home, my dad knew exactly what happened. And he said, hey, looks like you had a fight. And I told him that, I said, I can't believe this. I did all this. I thought everybody would appreciate me, but I am the bad girl now. Everybody is saying that how terrible I was to stand like that and yell and scream like the low class people. You're standing and yelling like that. I said, these are the things I heard. And my dad sat me down, and I think what he told me at 16 still stays true with me today. And he said that, see, if you want to fight for something, if you want to stand up for something, you have to give up being a good girl. And this is something you're told from the time you're a kid. These are two words I tell everybody, take it away from your lexicon: good girl and good boy. What this means is, don't talk back, don't say anything, just do what you're told, be a good boy or a good girl. He said, if you want to be that, then do what everybody wants you to do. But if you want to do something different, you have to be okay not being the good girl. And everybody won't support you. Everybody won't say that, oh, you're great. But the handful of people who support you will stay with you for the rest of your life. So you have to choose your battles. Do you want to be loved and appreciated by everyone? Or do you say, these are the things I stand for? But don't fight for everything. Choose your battles. Because you fight for everything, then people will stop listening to you. So you have to choose your battles. And that lesson was so important for me. We crave, at least I growing up craved, I want to be the teacher's pet. I was always top of class. I always won every elocution competition. I won every essay writing competition. I won so many medals for my school. Everywhere I went, I had to win. And I was super competitive. And it was important for me to be the teacher's pet. I wanted everybody to say, wow, you're such a nice girl. But it didn't happen to me that often. Despite all my efforts, I couldn't help fight for the things I wanted, or talk a little bit too loud, or, be mischievous, or whatever. And I look back now and I feel, who remembers about all the bad stuff I did? They only remember what I accomplished in my life. And I couldn't have accomplished what I accomplished if I listened to everybody else. So the point is, if the day I said, I don't care about being a good girl, I care about being good, that's when life changed for me. And I realized that all the things that I feel are different about me, I wish I was taller, I was slimmer, I was fairer, I was whatever, changes if you use your difference to your advantage. So the first time I found out is, I went to Portland, Oregon to study, 92% white population, into a tech company where it's 90% men, into a division where I was probably one of, 2 out of 200 men, So you are a minority in every possible way. And you know what I discovered? I go to Oregon, everybody is white, right? And they all want to look like me. They're spending time and money on tanning booths and all that stuff just to look like this. And they would always tell me, you have such a beautiful complexion. And I would say, generations of work. It didn't come overnight. So the point is, you need to be at the right place. In living in Andhra, in a traditional family, I have uncles who told me, like, if only you were a little fairer, it would have been easier to get a boy for you. But thank God you're not too tall. That means the number of men who can marry you is like, probability goes up, So from that, and of course my dad was always like, don't listen to anybody. I thought living in my house, I was the most beautiful, the smartest person ever there is, and I just didn't understand why the whole world didn't fall at my feet. I go to IIT Bombay to the hostel and I realize I'm like somewhere low at the pecking order, man. Nobody gives a flying hoot about who I am. And it was such a nerve-wracking experience for me to adjust to the world where I have to prove myself as opposed to being at the center of attention. And then I land in Portland and I realized that, wow, they all want to look like me. The second thing I realized, I go to Intel and I'm in this place that really is nerve-wracking. Andy Grove is the CEO and Gordon Moore is the one who defined Moore's law, is the founder, and all these people. And I walk into a room and it has more 3-letter acronyms than anything you can think about. Actually, Intel had a book called TLA, which is 3-letter acronym that was given to you when you came, so you understand what they're talking about. So you walk into a meeting, and I remember my first day they're saying, but the PFA for the slurp was not really that good, so we need to do TBD for ZBB, AR, and I'm just like, I don't understand. Is this English? What are they talking about? So, and I realized I walk into a room and everybody's talking about this complicated things, and finally I just said, you know what? I put my hand up and said, I had no idea what you just said. Can you explain? The minute I said it, you know what I heard in the room? A sigh of relief. Because 90% of the people also didn't understand what was going on. They just didn't have the guts to put their hand up. That was it. When I realized these two things, that number one, choose your fights. Everybody may not love you, but the people who love you will always be there with you. And number two, just ask. When you ask, it's amazing the doors that will open for you. Because, and the third thing is very important, and how I learned it. How many of you have actually dated a few men in your life? Okay, it's like a small, minor percentage, right? So I'll tell you a Far Side comic. There's an amazing Far Side comic, which I don't know how many of you read, which is like my favorite comic. There's a guy talking to the dog, and the guy is saying that, whatever the dog's name was, let's call it Leo. Leo, I can't believe you did this. I'm so upset at you because, Leo, you really didn't have to do that. And Leo, I've trained you so well and you wet the floor. And Leo, like this, like a whole dialogue he's saying. It says what the man says. And the other one says what the dog hears. Blah, 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 Leo. Blah, 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 Leo. So the dog is like wagging its tail thinking like this guy is saying something positive. And the same thing happens, I learned when I dated, is that you say, oh, the guy didn't call. Why didn't he call? Maybe he doesn't like me. Maybe blah, blah, blah. There's like this whole thing going on. By the time the guy called, you already put yourself down there that I was like this terrible date in the last thing, blah, blah, whatever, etc. And the guy calls and says that, hey, I just went to my hometown and there was no phone available or whatever. The reason was nothing to do with me at all. It's some situation they were in. And that's when you realized how men and women think so differently. We make like 200,000 reasons for something that has happened, where the reason could have been very trivial. It has nothing to do with you at all. So the third lesson I learned is that don't put your thoughts on somebody else. If they haven't called, their loss. If they have not renewed the relationship with you, their loss. If they haven't hired you, their loss. So you just have to be very comfortable with who you are and say everything else is their loss, and then the world really opens up. So with these three principles, I'll throw a number at you. We talked about technology, so I want to address a little bit of that. So I'll read a few numbers, okay? A company whose stock price has gone up 750% in the last 5 years spends almost $1 billion in advertising. $900 million, almost $1 billion in advertising. Very well-known company, brand is in the top 10 brands in the world. Who do you think that company is? Apple, okay. Just Microsoft, just say a few. I need 2 more yelling. Apple, Microsoft. One more answer. Huh? Pardon? Unilever, okay. So the interesting thing in this is that if this was a question asked 20 years ago, all the top three would have been consumer companies. Unilever, P&G, blah, blah, etc. Technology companies wouldn't have featured in it at all 20 years ago. Secondly, these numbers are, nobody asked which year. So these numbers are from 1997. And these are numbers for Intel. Intel spent $900 million in advertising that year. And it made $5 billion in profit. And its stock price went up 750% in the last 5 years since it launched Intel Inside campaign in 1991. Okay, that's the company I worked. That's what I was part of. And today, when you see whether it's Facebook or Google or any of the top companies that you see, they didn't even half of them didn't even exist in 1996. And I used to regularly see Steve Jobs and Andy Grove have lunches together in our cafeteria. People came to Andy Grove for advice, That is the company I worked for. And today, is it there in the top 10? The last year is the 11th on the top brand. Still, it's there in the top 15. But there are so many that have surpassed it, right? Where did we miss the boat? And it's still in the race. I mean, this is a company that's not lost its steam. Look at Kodak. What happened to Kodak Moment? Doesn't exist anymore. Lehman Brothers. I mean, I can name you 10 companies that were, in my time, Grindlay's Bank. In my time, it was like choice jobs to go to. They don't even exist today. So, if I want to talk a little bit about what we need to do to stay relevant, it's just not enough to know what you're doing today. You need to know what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen day after tomorrow. What will you be? How will you be in that scenario? It's not enough to be good at whatever you're doing. Are you surrounding yourself with people who are very different than you? So this is the second, if the first phase of my conversation, which I talked to you about, what I learned about myself, how I need to get myself at a place where I'm comfortable with myself, not being the good girl, being whoever I am, being the authentic self. The second phase of my journey is really about how do you stay relevant in this world? I could be all that, but if I cannot be of use to you to get from point A to point B, I'm irrelevant. No matter whose daughter I am, which company I founded, I could have been the CEO of Kodak for 50 years. But I may be completely irrelevant today if I don't understand social media, right? And the thing is, in my time even, shifts happened every 2 decades or 4 decades. Now shifts are happening every year. When an undergraduate person enters college, by the time they graduate in 3 years or 4 years, it's a generation. It's moved so fast that they are old compared to the new people that are coming in. A generation used to be 30 years apart, 20 years apart. Today, it's 2 to 3 years apart. How do you stay relevant in this? How do you stay relevant in this course? So, being from Intel, I love 3-letter acronyms. So I call this DOS. First of all, DOS is an operating system based on which we all did what we do, but it also is like do's and don'ts kind of a thing, So I always say there are 3 things, DOS, you need to remember. First is diversity. Do you have at least 10 people you're surrounded by who are completely different from you? If you are conservative, they are liberal. If you are liberal, they are conservative. If you're a woman, they are a man. If you're short, they are tall. If you're in tech company, they are an artist. Doesn't matter. Diversity. Do you know 10 people very well who you call friends who are completely different from you? A lot of the problems of the world today is because we are in echo chambers. We surround ourselves with people who are like us. We talk about the same problems, talk about the same solutions, but we have no clue about what's happening out there. So diversity. Second, O stands for out-of-box thinkers. Are you surrounding with people who are a little on the edge? I mean, you're embarrassed to be with them sometimes because you don't know what they're going to say, like what they're going to dress as. You just like don't know where they're going to go, right? So what? You were that at one point. So are you surrounded by out-of-box thinkers? And the other thing that's most important is that, S stands for many, many things. But the thing that's really important for me is simplicity. Are they able to say who they are, be who they are, live who they are in the most simple terms? Because if they're so extravagant and so all over the place, you're just like in awe of them that, oh my God, I can't even talk to them. You know what? You'll get that photo with them. They won't remember who you are. You will forever parade this photo saying, wow, I was with this person. Does not matter in the long run. But are they simple enough that they touched you in such a way that you actually can do something actionable? You understood what they're saying and you could do this in a way that it makes a difference for you. So when we are always looking for people who we want to feature on our stage, etc., I'm looking for that. Are they able to deliver their story in the most simple fashion? Okay. And the other thing that S stands for, which I use in my hiring, is are they smarter than you? I want to surround myself with people smarter than me. I want them to make me feel a little inferior, little like I'm afraid they'll take my job. I want to hire people like that. And they question me. I'm just like, yeah, just do, okay? Don't ask me questions. But they ask me questions. And they put me in uncomfortable positions. I want to be surrounded by people who are smarter than me, who make me a little uncomfortable, who make me insecure. It's important for me. Like they are like, they're like, like my mind is going for a toss because of the questions they're asking. So my insecurity is my strength. I'm very clear what my insecurities are, and I make sure I put myself in those situations constantly where I'm insecure. I'm insecure about being said no. I mean, I just don't like being said no to. I just want to walk into a room and people say, how much money do you want me to give you? That's what I want. And then I have to like, oh, like kind of just hack it for like some stupid 2 lakhs. I have to convince 20 people and I'm just like, I'm too much bigger than this, right? But doesn't matter. The game of having somebody say yes to you is a game in itself. And one of the quotes I like the most is, if you've not been rejected at least 3 times every day, you're not trying hard enough. Enjoy being said no to. You know what? They'll forget you. But the people who say yes, my God, it's such a thrill, right? And I did acting as a minor, and if you want to understand rejection, you need to be an actress and do your auditions over and over and over again and to be said no to. So those are the two main things that I wanted to talk about is myself, how do I push myself to be in a place where I'm okay not being a good girl? And secondly, how do I make sure I learn what's going on out there? And for this, the biggest gap we need to overcome is ageism, because as an experienced person, my son is 16 and I'm like, what does he have to teach me, right? But he has everything to teach me. The way he argues about things, he questions so many fundamentals I have. If any problem with my phone, he's the first guy I go to. I'm like, can you teach me how to do this? So he told me, I was like so cool, like about 5-6 years ago, I think. I'm on Facebook now. Every day I do Facebook updates and all this stuff. So I was really, really proud. So my friend John Hardy runs a place called Green School. By the way, this is designed by him. And he runs something called Green School in Bali, which is a phenomenal school. So I took my son to that school. And he was there for a couple of weeks. And they were all discussing in their team about marketing campaign for a product. So we were chatting with it. And I told him, I said, oh, did you guys talk about social media and Facebook and stuff? He said, yeah, Mom. We talked about it. We asked them, what is the age of the audience? And they said, it's above 40, 45. I said, old people? Then you do Facebook. If it's young people, Instagram, So I was just like, I thought I was so cool and young and you're calling Facebook old people. He goes, yes, Mom, Facebook is for old people. He took my phone, created an Instagram account for me, and then he says, you want to be cool? You post things on Instagram. So I told him, can I have access to your Instagram? He said, no. All my friends have access to his Instagram, but I don't, So I was like, wow. This could have been a social media class I attended for 5 days. He gave me in 5 minutes, like, you want to be cool? Be on Instagram. And he teaches me things, now Instagram is over. He's like teaching me something else. The point is, we have to learn across generations. And the other thing that I see happening, I work with a lot of startups, a lot of young people. Somebody graduates from college and they think, okay, now I need to get funded, $1 million, blah, 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 all these things, and I'm going to go IPO. IPO doesn't even exist anymore these days. I'm going to be, like funded for $100 million, $200 million, whatever it is. And there is no experience in that company. Most everybody is under 30 years of age, which is fantastic for new ideas. But how do you build a base? That is important. So they think anybody over 30 is an old hag and have nothing to contribute. Right? And I tell them that, look at Google, look at Facebook. They all brought people older than them for them to stay afloat. If Eric Schmidt didn't come when he did, if Sheryl Sandberg didn't come when she did. Now you can argue until the cows come home whether that was a good reason or not. But the fact that they brought experienced people helped them move forward, right? So I started a column called 50 over 50. There's too many things about 20 under 20, 30 under 30. So what happens? You go 50 and like you're written off or what? So I said, I'm going to start this called 50 over 50. So I started this about 4 months ago. And just in January, Facebook came out with a book called 50 over 50 at World Economic Forum. This month, Fortune, I think, announced that they're going to do a column called 50 over 50, and I take complete credit. I am the one who came up with this idea. The point is, you have to stand for what you believe in and start something. And somebody much better than you will actually take it to a much farther heights than you can ever do it. But unless you start speaking up, no one is going to come to your rescue. You have to speak up. You have to make the path. And no one else will do it. So this whole thing of, one of the things Apurva talked about that's very important is that we women, we expect someone else to find all our good things. So when I was with Intel and my husband was with AMD competitors, and I was going for my review and my husband said, did you write down, here are the things that I did in the last year, this is what I did, my salary is this, it should be this. Did you write it down? I said, why do I need to write it down? My boss knows what I have done. He will reward me. He said, are you out of your mind? Your boss won't remember what you did. Every one of your colleagues is going to go there with these numbers saying, I'm at this is the increase I want, these are the 10 things I did. And he made me actually write down all the things that I did. And it was such a foreign concept to me to ask for what I want. Even today, people invite me to give talks, this, that, etc. And speaker bureaus call me and they say that, how much will you charge? And I'm like, oh, whatever you want, I really don't. So what I did, I have a guy now who works for me. He talks to them. I'm like, don't put me in the middle. You talk to them and you figure it out. I don't want to deal with it. So the point is that you have to know what you want. Whatever you're not good at, hire it. You don't need to become good at everything in the world, but know what you're not good at and hire somebody to do that. So don't kill yourself to become really the perfect person. So finally, I want to talk about the current journey I'm on, which is INK, which stands for Innovation and Knowledge. But really, for me, INK stands for it's writing. It's whether you print or write, you need ink. But ink is nothing in itself. It takes shape in the hands of those who do something with it. What you write with ink, what you do with it is what makes ink purposeful, what it is. So for us, ink is a platform and we tell stories on this platform. And this comes from a proverb that really influenced me, which says that the stories will always be of the hunter unless the lions start telling their stories. It's an African proverb. For the longest time, we in India, we women, we Asians, whatever, you take any group, we let our stories be told by someone else. Unless we stand and tell our stories ourselves, the world will not recognize what we have done. So to me, instead of me telling someone else's stories, creating a stage for them to tell their stories and working with them behind the scenes so they can deliver the best possible story in front of the best possible audience is what keeps us going. It could be, there are so many amazing corporations in India. How come none of them feature in the global 50 influencers or whatever? Why so few of them feature? Because we don't know how to be articulate in front of an audience. We don't know how to claim our space. For a country who is a country of storytellers, we forgot how to tell our stories. So our mission for the last 10 years has been, how do you find people who are doing amazing work and work with them to tell their stories so their stories become famous? Whether it's Arunachalam Muruganandam, who told his story, got 1 million people to watch it, and that became a Padman movie, or whether it's Aisha Chaudhary, who we discovered, who told her story in such a compelling way, and ultimately Sky is Pink was made based on her parents. So what we do every year, we have a fellowship program where we pick 20 amazing people from across disciplines and we work with them on telling their stories. We create a stage for them. We take them all over the world to tell their stories. Every time I'm invited to a place, I suggest 2 others of our INK fellows to be there, to create a platform for them to tell their stories. And today we have over 200 of our fellows, their stories, and we have over 500 stories, 70 million views, and at least 6 movies have been made out of the stories that we put out there. 2 people got Padma Shris, national awards. Did all this happen because of what we did? No. But you catalyze it. You catalyze their journey. In 10 minutes, in 3 minutes, in 6 minutes, how do you get them to tell their story so 1 million people will watch it? That's all we focus on. And 90% of the time, people don't even know we did the work. And that's okay. What we want is that person to become famous, their journey to become famous. So when I look at an IPO, to me, it's a incredible people offering. That's what we look at. So the reason I do this journey is because 10 years ago when I brought TED to India, I chose to tell the story of Sunita Krishnan through Sunita Krishnan. And Sunita Krishnan is a woman who rescues women out of prostitution and gives them a home in Hyderabad. At 4'9", she is the most powerful persona I ever met in my life. And I told her to tell her story with facts. Don't, make it nice or whatever. Just say it like how it is. And her story, her personal story, as well as how many women are actually, in prostitution. She told stories of a woman who's been tied to a bedpost for 30 years, where an average of 50 men are raping her. And a story of a girl who is 5 or 6 years old when they're rescued. She's mentally, ill, and how they rescued her, and she became my flower girl. She became my reason for existence for me. And we determined that I asked Sunita, what do you need? She gave this talk in front of 1,000 people, and there was not a dry eye in the audience. And I asked her, what can we do? She said, I wish we had a permanent home so that we are not driven out of every home. Nobody wants us in their neighborhood. I wish we had a permanent home. Audience have put their hands up saying, I will help. We talked to the largest corporations, largest CSRs. We gathered enough money for her. 18 months from the time she gave that talk on the stage, she had a 10-acre campus outside Hyderabad where all the women live in peace. They have their own theater, they grow their own food, they make their own furniture, they do everything, they're completely self-sufficient. That's the power of a great story. And that's the power of a great audience. And to me, that has become my calling of getting people to tell their stories. It's not about us telling the stories. So I want to end with the story of what I'm wearing today. And this is made by our Ink fellow, Gayatri Sharma. She runs an organization, a brand called Heimat, which I know I'm going to not say right. It's a German word which means homecoming. And she's passionate about design. She studied in Parsons School. And what she realized, when we say the word Master G, tailor, Master G, just as the name suggests, it's men. That is the highest in the pecking order of pattern cutting, is all men. She decided she's going to change that. She trains women to be Master Gs, and she hires all of them. And she realized that the clothing made by them to create a path for them to succeed, she launched her own label where she gets the women to make the clothes and she sells it under her label. This is something they're going to launch. They're launched already, a collection. So I want to say it, and what they do is the colors are chosen by the spaces where women live. So if you remember, most of the slums are covered by blue tarp, right? So the blue tassels, the blues in here are for that. And the color of this is the curry yellow. So whether you're poor or rich or whatever, when you make a curry, it's the same color. So the colors they use, everything is about, it says where the women are from. And what they also do, if you see, there's a pattern here and there is a pattern here. So these are all like Google Maps things of the areas where the women live. And so this particular pattern is about Tughlakabad, where Rizwana, who comes from here, lives. Master G, it's her design. And that is what is put on the sari. And this sari is, half linen, half khadi. The materials they use are also very local. So she's committed to train women Master Gs and have it designed by them and create a global brand which showcases where they come from. Let's not forget where they come from. So that's the story of her. So I want to wrap up by saying that stories are everything. And the way we tell our stories defines who we are. And by telling one story of someone else other than you, you change someone's life. So if you don't know which story to tell, just go to inktalks.com. There's 500 of them, of people who are nothing like you, but their stories need to be told. So that is what gets me going. And I want to end by saying the quote that defines us is, there's a term, there's a saying that I heard before I started this company. It's called, life ought not to be measured by the number of breaths we take, but by the number of moments that take our breath away. Now, if that is true, if that's really true, then we should all be greedy about the number of moments we collect in our life and not the number of, money we accumulate in the bank. Which means, as a society, we need to recognize people who are those people creating magical moments for others. And we call that Billionaires of Moments. And our theme was Billionaires of Moments. We write about Billionaires of Moments. So everyone we invite to be on our stage have to pass that test of being Billionaires of Moments. Only then they get to be on our stage. When you come to our gatherings, 90% of the people on the stage are unknown, 90% of the audience are well known. and it's the other way around. And we want to make new heroes, and we want to create a billionaires of moments, and we want, our dream is someday to have a, like a Fortune 500 companies or whatever, hopefully we'll partner with somebody and have billionaires of moments list, and people would want to be part of that. A new way to define our success, a new way to be us. Because to me, the fact that we made that home available for Sunita Krishnan and my flower girl got to live there for at least a year of her life in peace before she passed away at the age of 8 is the biggest gift we have gotten and our community have gotten. We couldn't have done it if we didn't know how to tell a story. And that's the power of a story. And that's the power of Billionaires of Moments. Thank you.